Results of elections in 5 states have ended up changing political perceptions just months ahead of the crucial Lok Sabha election. The Congress has won 3 out of the 5 state elections, wresting power from the BJP in the states of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan. These Hindi heartland states have long been considered bastions for the BJP, and apart from Rajasthan, the BJP has ruled in this region for the last 15 years. So what does this defeat mean for the BJP, and will the party now go back to the drawing board before 2019? To speak on this, I'm joined today by Nalin Kohli, who's a national spokesperson for the BJP, a senior leader in the party as well. Mr. Kohli, thank you for speaking with BloombergQuint.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
What happened? Did calculations go very wrong? Was the anti-incumbency factor not looked at closely enough? Now that we've had a few hours to go and the results have finally come in, everything is clear. What is your assessment of what went wrong for the BJP in these 3 states?
Well, if you look at it, I'll answer both the questions in terms of Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh. Mr. Jaitley yesterday had a very interesting thing to comment and say it's not really an anti-incumbency, but it may be a fatigue factor for Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, because we have been incumbent for 15 years. We do believe that the governments, all 3 states, have been performing well. Now, whatever be that factor, we'll have to assess. Madhya Pradesh is a fascinating election. We've overall been in greater vote share, extremely close contest, and yet we've not been able to cross that 4-5 seats which the Congress got ahead of us. And the result came late night. So therefore, Madhya Pradesh is to see it as a defeat in that sense may be a little difficult. We won't form the government, but Madhya Pradesh has been extremely keenly contested, and it can't be tighter than that in a state assembly of 230 seats. Chhattisgarh is a one-way complete battle in favor of the Congress. We'll need to assess what is the factor there. Rajasthan, everyone was predicting a wipeout because every 5 years, Rajasthan has a history of changing governments. Yeah. But still, I think Vasundhara Raje ji's government did manage to pull off quite a better performance than what was being predicted. So that's with regard to the heartland, Hindi heartland. From the 2019 perspective, we have 61 out of the 65 seats, Lok Sabha seats. So obviously, we are going to study that very closely and look at what we have to do. Yeah. It goes without saying that that election will be contested on the central government's agenda, the central government's performance and Prime Minister Modi's leadership. Whereas these elections are not an election in any way connected to that. So they are separate elections, and I'm sure the party will tighten up whatever needs to be tightened up, and we'll be completely as we consider ourselves
you talk about the 61 seats. You talk about the 61 seats. In 2014, you had 62 out of the 65, and we did a little math yesterday, sort of a seat projection. As per yesterday's results, the BJP would be down to 31 out of these 65 seats. And I know it's an apples to orange comparison, but statistically, if you were to make that projection, what it tells you is that the BJP is in trouble here. And today, would you really be able to separate any anti-incumbency towards the central government's policies from the results we've seen today, simply because the Prime Minister has rallied so much in these states and talked about a lot of national issues, as did the opposition?
Three parts to your answer. First, I can't accept the hypothesis you are working on, because if I accept that as true, then there is no explanation that in 2003, we won 3 out of the 4 states, and we had a greater number of Lok Sabha seats at that time in the state assembly. By that calculation, we lost the 2004 elections. So it's not like that. I think every election stands at its own footing. A local election on local issues, a state election on state issues and local issues, and a national election primarily on national issues. Which also brings me to the campaigning. National leaders normally campaign on national issues. The state leaders campaign on state, and then the local leader or the MLA on the region where he's fighting. So I think to mix all of them together would also be undermining or not be a correct comment on our democratic process. The third is that we need to look at a little beyond the Hindi heartland. There are 2 other elections that also hold an important story. Yeah. Mizoram was the only state where the Congress it was a bastion of the Congress. They've lost it completely in the northeast. Now there's not a single Congress government in the entire northeast. And Telangana, there was an attempt to create a grand alliance called Mahakutumbi. And that's also failed miserably. And KCR has come back, struck gold. So therefore, if you ask me, when I look at the totality of the elections, it follows as this. There is no grand story in all India perspective from the Congress's perspective. They've lost the state they were in power, which was their stronghold. Their grand alliance didn't succeed in the south, where the elections was. They have barely wrested Madhya Pradesh. They have swept Chhattisgarh, and they have won by a comfortable majority, just across the majority mark, in Rajasthan. From the BJP's perspective, Madhya Pradesh has fought till the very end. Can't say that it's been, wiped out. It's a one-way street against us in Chhattisgarh, which needs to be assessed. And in Rajasthan, it's not been as bad as what was being predicted. So therefore, in Mizoram, we've opened our account. We never opened our account. In Telangana, we were a marginal player. We continue to be a marginal player.
You've lost seats.
So therefore, there is no grand story here.
No, so in Telangana, actually, the BJP has lost seats compared to last time, and which also brings me to the next question.
I'm aware. Yeah. I'm aware, but we were 5 out of 119.
So you're now 1. Another thing about Telangana, and when we're trying to analyze what this election is telling us, the success of the TRS in Telangana is now being accredited in part to some of the agricultural schemes that the KCR government had put forward, including Raitu Bandhu and other schemes like that, which are in a sense assured income schemes for farmers. As the numbers are passed, there is a trend emerging of agricultural distress leading to the kind of results being seen for the BJP. So where does the party and the government go from here? There's a report today saying that there could be a 4 lakh crore rupee farm loan waiver announced by the government. Is that something which we're likely to see in the next few months?
I can't comment on that because I don't know. And I can't speak for the government in any way. I am a party spokesperson. So therefore, that is something that only the government would know. However, when we look at agriculture, let's then also decode it further. Madhya Pradesh has among the fastest agricultural rates in the entire country, one of the best MSPs. It has also the massive amount of under Shivraj Singh Chauhan. A total irrigated area went up from about 8 lakh hectares to almost 35 lakh hectares over 10-12 years. So therefore, if you ask and in Chhattisgarh, Raman Singh was considered Chawal Baba in terms of the massive output of rice that Chhattisgarh contributed towards, and the PDS system being ranked and assessed as one of the finest in the country. So therefore, a story is not as simple as, a one issue or another issue. If I look at the national situation in agriculture, Prime Minister Modi's government has introduced soil health cards, which is now 13 crore soil health cards. Urea has been neem coated, fertilizer shortages have been virtually eliminated. You've had 1.5% of the cost of agriculture as the MSP. So steps have been taken. Credit has increased, insurance has increased. So one will have to go back and check what is the reason. And I'll give an example of 2004. In 2004, a lot of people and commentators said that BJP lost because of India shining. They said that India was shining only in urban centers, and we lost in rural areas. But over the next few months, when we assess the entire elections, what was the story? India shining was not the real story. The story is the BJP lost all urban centers except Bangalore.
So Mr. Kohli,
and BJP won all its seats in rural and semi-rural areas.
Okay, so Mr. Kohli, to understand what you're saying, are you saying today that you think as of now that rural distress was not a factor in these election results? Is that what you're trying to say?
I can't, I'm saying I need to see it empirically based on a deeper analysis, not an off the cuff. The other day, and I can't name because it was just at a business conclave that I met with somebody very senior who in the business world, not business world but in the corporate world, who does deal with agricultural related issues. And one of my first questions to him is that how are you finding demand in the rural areas? And he said actually pretty good, because they deal with agricultural products and they are products that sell in rural India. And he said at least my company has had a good growth of about 15% over last year. So I don't know, without empirical data, to arrive at a comment which political people make at rallies may not be the correct approach. No, so we need to go deeper.
I'll tell you the reason for that. I'll tell you the reason for that.
It has to be seen.
No,
is it transnational?
I agree. I agree with you that output in agriculture under Shivraj Singh Chauhan increased. But did it translate into increased income for the last farmer. I agree that an overall overarching statement can't be made without going through the details of the data. But these are 3 states in which an overwhelming majority of the population is engaged in agriculture, which is why it is fairly safe to say with certainty that the BJP today has a problem in the villages of 3 very big states, that you will have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what to give rural India, apart from what you've already been saying, and is what you're claiming really reaching the guy who needs it?
We'll have to study it. I can't make a comment again off the cuff. For the reason being that prior to these elections, the BJP has had a run of winning elections. They also had equally rural areas. So my only argument is that every state election is separate. Every state election and every election, even of a by-election, has multiplicity of factors, very rarely a single factor or a primary single factor. And the political analysis always requires looking at all the issues before arriving at a conclusion. And what I'm only saying is my party will certainly be looking at all of it in great detail, because that's how we've learned. We've studied every defeat very carefully. That's how the BJP has moved from 2 seats, as low as 2 seats in '84, to a single majority government today.
Do you think this is going to be a trend? What we've seen in these elections is going to be a trend which could harm the BJP's prospects in 2019?
I'll repeat the argument. In 2003, we won 3 out of the 4 states and lost the 2004 election. We won 2 out of the 4 states in 2009 and did not win the 2009 elections. In 2013, we won 3 states and won the election in 2014 under Prime Minister Modi's leadership. So there is no pattern. So I would not use this as a semi-final, as the media tends to call it. This is a state election. The results are dependent on the state. Prime Minister Modi campaigned. Some people say that he campaigned too much. I have read counter stories that say that he should have campaigned more. He only gave 10 rallies, whereas in Karnataka he gave 22 rallies. Now his availability was less. But when it comes to the national election, that will be primarily on Prime Minister Modi, his government's performance, and obviously that has to be assessed on those issues.
So one projection of will the government now, try schemes like farm loan waivers, etc., and we've spoken about that. Another sort of assumption or assessment is that the government and the BJP in particular now may be tempted to indulge in polarizing issues and that kind of politics to ratchet up more support before 2019. We saw Yogi Adityanath, the UP Chief Minister, giving a large number of rallies in all of these states. There was a count of 70 last, though I haven't counted each and every rally, I must say. And what he said in these rallies were polarizing statements. Is that the direction the BJP is going to head in now, Mr. Kohli?
Well, I would ask you to tell me the total number of leaders who campaigned in all these states, how many of them did 50 and above rallies, and how many of those speeches were polarizing. If you totaled all of them up, you wouldn't ask me this question. So I think we need to bear in mind, and the media is entitled to pick up what they believe is newsworthy. They chase a few leaders, they pick up the statements that make the most, and that makes the headlines. But to say that I'm sure Yogi Adityanath ji also, if you will hear his whole 40-minute speech or a 50-minute speech, 3 sentences make the news, but what about the 3,000 sentences preceding it and after it, which may have been about the schemes that he did in Uttar Pradesh? So to use that as an example and say this is the agenda, no, I don't agree.
No,
I think it's far worse than that.
I'm sure he said a lot of other things, but that doesn't mean he didn't say the things that he did, Mr. Kohli. My question is very simply, will he continue to be your star campaigner in 2019? Will there be an effort to move to more polarizing politics, more on religious lines, and will that be the next direction the BJP will head in?
So let me give you the second argument. My first one was what I made. The second argument, I'll tell you, Mr. Owaisi's party, does it speak about development? Have you picked some of the speeches of him and his brother, who's now won the next election also? So therefore, I think people do come up with statements across the country but it is not a one-way polarizing. When I see the Congress leaders go to temples and masjids and churches during election, then it's not seen as polarizing. When the BJP or someone will go, it's seen as polarizing.
No, what Mr. Yogi Adityanath said and going to temples and churches are very different things. No, Mr. Kohli, okay, two things. First of all, I don't think there's any equivalence between the AIMIM and the BJP. You can ask this question in as many manners. You can ask this question to me. I'm saying there is a reason Yogi Adityanath is the Chief Minister of a state.
But when you say...
He's the Chief Minister of a state. MIM has some 6 seats in Telangana. There's no equivalence between the two.
But again, as I'm saying...
Going to a temple is not the same as making the kind of comments I would not like to repeat. So they're not the same thing.
Have you finished your question?
I hope you'll answer
your question? No, have you finished your question? Now I'll answer it. Well, I'm just simply telling you, you are picking one chief minister, the BJP has 18, now probably down to 16. And out of those 16, you are not talking to me about the other speeches. So when you say that Yogi Adityanath as his speech represents the entire BJP and only 4 sentences in his speech as being the agenda of the BJP, I'm going to reject it. Because empirically, you are completely incorrect, ma'am. You are not speaking of the balance of his speeches, of what is the content of his speech. You are entitled as a media house to pick up that one sentence which you believe is polarizing.
So are you then
and
saying,
which you believe, and my counter to that as an advocate who practices in the court. I have not finished my answer, ma'am. No. I'm sure you love your question, but you'll have to hear my answer. And I'll say this as a practicing advocate at the Supreme Court, that the right of the Constitution under Article 19, the freedom of speech and expression is for every Indian citizen, including Yogi Adityanath. But my party's agenda is what we define clearly in the manifesto, what is coming out there clearly in agenda, and each government of ours doesn't have a polarizing agenda. The governments have development as the primary agenda.
Okay, so are you saying that what Yogi Adityanath says is not necessarily reflective of what the BJP means?
Yogi Adityanath ji, and I'm saying it again, Yogi Adityanath ji's entire speech will reveal the width of all the points he raised. One point which may be treated as polarizing by you is not what is the core agenda of the BJP. So if you'll ask me, for example, on name change, Kerala as a state has every city's name changed. Where was Yogi Adityanath or the BJP involved in that? Kochi, Thiruvananthapuram, Kozhikode. I mean, I can name you city after city.
Mr.
Where
Kohli,
was the BJP in that?
You can argue, I'm sure you are an excellent lawyer and you can argue this in every which way, but people know what they see and they hear. It's a very simple question. 2019, are you going to come back to Vikas or is it going to be about Ram Mandir?
Okay, now that question is about 2019 and direct, and I'll answer it straight. As far as the BJP is considered, our agenda in 2014 was Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. Development, the politics of performance. That's what Modi ji's government has done it. When people say we are polarizing, we ask a counter question. 5 crore gas connections given. Show me one which has been given on religious line or discrimination on caste or region. Show me in the 13 crore Kisan soil health cards whether there has been any kind of distinction or disparity between people who got it. Show me about the toilets that are built or the 50 crore people who will get Ayushman Bharat healthcare facilities, whether it is seen on lines of Hindu, Muslim, Christian, region, caste or anything. No, that's the proof of the pudding. That's the agenda.
Well, we'll wait and see if that agenda is what we see in 2019 as well. Thank you so much, Nalin Kohli, for joining us today and answering all of our questions candidly.
Thank you very much.